Hey, what up, everybody? Thank you for joining us. I'm Nordo. That's Meat Sauce right there. How you doing, Sauce?
Good, brother. How are you, man?
Oh, it's beautiful. Another draft preview. And thanks to anybody watching, whether it's Facebook, it's Twitter, Periscope, wherever the hell you're watching us on all KFAN social channels. And as you see there in the graphic, it is presented by Granite Logistics, where your new career awaits. And that's why we're here, Saucy, because there's a lot of dudes whose future NFL careers are awaiting them as we get closer to the draft tomorrow night. And this is one of our favorite times of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm so excited. I can't wait because, we've talked a lot about it at the office. We've talked a lot about it on our show on Saturdays. You and PA have talked about it. Lieber and I have talked about it. We just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, the example that I brought up last Saturday with you, Charch, and I was there was a time in 2003 when Carson Palmer was the first overall pick, and he signed his contract, and they had a press conference like 2 weeks before the draft even took place. Now, that stuff has changed because they want the drama and they want all that for the TV stuff, but we have no idea. And I know Walker is the Vegas favorite to be the number one overall pick, but we still don't know what's going to happen after that. And I know you have a bunch of talkers, and I do as well, but I'm just excited because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't have those 2 or 3 quarterbacks like we had last year that we can lock in at pick 1, 2, and 3. We don't have some dynamite wide receiver that we think will go in the 3rd pick, 4th pick. It might be 3 straight defensive ends. We just don't know. And it's going to be great. ESPN did a thing earlier where they were like, on PTI, where they said, is this a down year? Well, the only reason it's a down year is because there isn't. Last year, we had arguably the greatest quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. We don't have that this year. But for diehard football fans or even casual football fans, we know who is in the first round and maybe the second round. We know a lot of the names, but we just don't know where they're going to go, and that's the exciting part, Nordo.
Yeah, it is exciting, and it's twofold for Vikings fans in the regard that we don't have that elite super top tier of talent that absolutely everybody's vying for. But additionally, we have no idea how Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Ryan Grigson and this new brain trust with the Minnesota Vikings will be operating starting tomorrow. And that leaves so many different things open for a team that has a ton of needs, that wants to improve on the 7-10 and get themselves back into the postseason mix. Now, at some point this evening, again, thanks to Granite Logistics for bringing this to you. I believe we're going to be doing another one either Friday or Saturday, so watch out on social for that as well. But later on, both of us have constructed our top 5 at 12.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. I mean, the drama that will ensue when we unveil those. Now, to start this off, though, you mentioned it. Trayvon Walker, and I shouldn't call him like it's coming out of nowhere. Georgia Bulldogs, national champions, and the trademark to that team this last year was defense. So it feels like every single Georgia Bulldog that started on defense is a first-round prospect. But Trayvon Walker has really emerged from a steamrolling standpoint to be the first overall pick. Now, Saturdays with Sauce, you and I have both discussed this, and we're kind of on a level plane with this, where at some point in the first round, there will be swing picks. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, with the first overall pick, if they choose Trayvon Walker, it feels like Aiden Hutchinson is the natural second pick to the Detroit Lions. However, in my opinion, I think Aiden Hutchinson is an absolute bona fide badass and the best talent in this draft. If the Jacksonville Jaguars take Aiden Hutchinson, does that naturally mean that Trayvon Walker goes number 2? And that swing pick that you've been so fascinated about, Saucy, at pick 2 with the Lions, we've thrown Malik Willis in there. We've thrown Sauce Gardner in there. And I'm just really interested, even on the front end for 2 teams, or at least the Jaguars, who don't impact us much at all, what they do with that first pick kind of sets things in motion for a weird first round.
Yeah, especially if they go that route, if they go the Walker route. And as you just said, then does that mean that Aiden Hutchinson goes second? Sure. Okay. I think that would be a perfect scenario for the Lions. But as you just said, nothing that, what does it matter what Jacksonville does? Well, what Jacksonville does now affects us because now we got to find a way to block Aiden Hutchinson. And you and I don't play on the team, but the Vikings now have to find a way to block a guy who was, what was he, third or fourth in the Heisman runner-up? I mean, he's an incredible football player on an incredible team. And Walker is basically being drafted because they think long-term he'll be the better player. And it's all the untapped potential, which is a word you hear a lot this time of year. But it's a dream scenario for the Detroit Lions. If, as you can see on the screen, if Aiden Hutchinson is available at the second pick. And I personally think that that's a giant mistake for Jacksonville. And Dan Orlovsky just said it about an hour ago on NFL Live, that this is why they pick they pick number one all the time, because they take the wrong guy. How do you not take Aiden Hutchinson number one? Yeah. Maybe Walker in 4 or 5 years will be the better player, but in 4 or 5 years, you may have wasted 4 or 5 years of Lawrence's career. And what did they say all offseason with the Jets? Another way to help Zach Wilson is to get them off the opposing offense off the field quicker, so Zach Wilson go back to work. Offense helps defense, and defense helps offense. I think it's a giant mistake if they take him 1 overall.
You're an absolute poet, to be honest with you. Offense helps defense. Defense helps offense. Yeah. One hand shakes the other, and everybody wins. How about this, Saucy? So when we talk about the needs for the Minnesota Vikings, things could come up like, hey, let's bolster the pass rush. This linebacking situation from a depth perspective. O-line, still a conversation, even though we hope they got better with those moves they made in free agency. How about another weapon? Or, as has been the case really since minute one when the season ended, common themes to the conversation with the draft has been corner. And we get Patrick Peterson in the mix. We're hoping that third time's the charm, or third year's the charm for Cam Dantzler. And then you got Chandon Sullivan, maybe your slot guy. But we have talked to no end about the need for adding a corner to this mix. Looking at this draft as things have progressed, especially post LSU Pro Day and the ability to see Derek Stingley Jr. in full effect and full health, who do you think the first team is that will be selecting a corner? Now, it might be the Lions at 2 because of the Jeff Okudah L. And if Hutchinson was gone, that's kind of why I brought that up, because now if Hutchinson, and there's no Michigan connection there, suddenly some things open up for the Lions in terms of what they might want to do. Then you have the Jets at 4. You have the Giants with a couple of picks in the top 7. They have a contract issue with James Bradbury right now. And the Texans, they need everything. So, you can't really exclude them from a conversation. Who do you think, just throwing darts at the wall as we love to do, who do you think is the first team to select a corner tomorrow evening, sir?
Well, I think in the perfect scenario, Walker will go number 1. That's not my choice, but I think that's what will happen. I think the Lions would go corner, but they can't pass on Aiden Hutchinson at 2. It's too good of a story. It's just too good of everything. It's just a perfect scenario for them, and he's a perfect guy for their head coach. I think it's the favorite in the 702, our favorite town in Las Vegas. I'm pretty sure Derek Stingley Jr. is the heavy favorite to go 3rd overall to the Texans. And a month ago, it's just a matter of time before Derek Stingley Jr. is on this team. We had Patrick Peterson basically say Derek Stingley Jr. will be a perfect Viking. It's just a matter of time. That's completely changed because the pundits and the powers that be, the Mel Kipers of the world, say that if he could have come out his freshman year, he might have been the number 1 overall pick. And I think he will be the 3rd overall pick. I think it'll go Walker, Hutchinson, and then Derek Stingley Jr. 3rd overall.
It's so weird because similar to the Trayvon Walker bit where steamrolling had pushed him up to the top over the last couple of weeks, same thing with Derek Stingley. Ahmad Sauce Gardner still did not allow a touchdown in his college career, still has the ball skills and the ability to get to the house going the other way, still shows absolute lockdown, but versatility to work maybe in zone. So the steam has kind of flip-flopped a couple of these big spots positions, Saucy.
Yeah. I think the one thing when it comes to the Vikings, and that's why we're here to basically talk about the Vikings, but I think Derek Stingley Jr. is he's just too good of a corner. And I think a lot of teams saw him work out, and was it the Liz Frank injury he had? Oh yeah, Derek Stingley's a stud. Gardner is also great. I just think that the Texans need a splash, and I think Sauce would be one, but I think 10 years from now, Derek Stingley Jr. will be the better corner, but I don't think Sauce Gardner goes that much further. I think Sauce Gardner goes 5th overall, would be my guess. He goes 5th overall, and he's the Giants' first pick at 5. And I just think that's the way it works because, the Jets and Giants have 2 picks, so they can kind of take their potpourri of whoever they want with their first pick and then kind of see how the rest of the board falls. And if it doesn't fall their way, I think both of those picks, 7 and 10, that are owned by the Jets and the Giants respectively, I think both of those picks are could be moved, especially if they can get good value for them. But in my opinion, Derek Stingley Jr. will be the first corner taken, and Gardner will go probably a pick or 2 later.
Yeah, I like that. The one interesting thing, and this is with this draft in the first round, 8 teams have 2 picks.
Yeah.
8 teams make up half the first round in terms of the selections.
The Giants pick 5th and 7th.
Yeah, it's not bad to be terrible, I guess, if that's how you're going to look at it.
The Giant pick is, how did they get the 7th overall pick from the they traded last year with the Bears for Justin, or what's his face, the quarterback?
Fields. Yeah, Justin Fields.
Think about it. The Bears would have the 7th overall pick if they had made that move.
Yeah, and they absolutely need it.
All right, they get Malik Willis at that pick.
Would Malik Willis be better than Justin Fields?
I don't know. Justin Fields has been put in a bad spot. That Chicago team is hideous. But
no, they're real bad.
Yeah.
They're real bad. But with these teams with 2 picks, the one thing, and we'll talk about it more during the Power Trip mock draft, is one position we haven't talked about in the first round yet. And I'm with you. I actually still think Sauce goes first, but Stingley, I mean, it's trying to pretend like we have watched all of their games. I don't feel comfortable. I think that Stingley would be a better fit potentially with us, but I see both having long, super successful careers. So we're kind of arguing over 2 elite guys.
My quick thing though, Nordo, is like, and I had to talk, I won't name him by name, but his initials are RD. And I had to basically talk him off the ledge. Like, unless we get a Laramie Tunsil bong gas mask situation, Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley will not be Vikings tomorrow. They just won't. They're gonna go in the top 5. 2 corners will go in the top 5, and they just won't be available. So that the Stingley and Sauce Gardner dream is dead. And a lot of people have asked me, well, why don't we trade up to 5? To go to 12 to 5, I don't know how you could do it without giving up your 2nd and 3rd round pick or giving up next year's 1st. And I'm not doing that. There's no way I would do that. You do that. You don't move up that far for a corner. If it's a defensive end, maybe, but a quarterback is about the only position you would trade that much for.
Yeah, and I don't know if we're in a position. I mean, if something falls to us, and we could get to that QB conversation if we want to in terms of Vikings at 12, but I wouldn't be trading up in this particular case. That's just where I stand on it. But a big part of that conversation about talent being at 12 for the Vikings is you kind of look through this. If the corners are gone, we haven't even gotten to the fact that, like, the Jets at 4, for instance, what about Ike Ekwonu? I mean, the offensive lineman, there's 3 or 4 absolute starters that are in this draft. It's Ike Ekwonu, Evan Neal from Alabama, then it's Charles Cross, Mississippi State. Isn't there a Northern Iowa kid?
Yeah, what's that? Hold on, let me find him.
Penner, maybe?
Yeah, Penning. Trevor Penning, yeah.
Yeah, and so with that said, those guys are going to push some talent down as well. Now, I would see the Jets taking an O-lineman in this situation at some point early.
Go ahead, sorry.
Well, no, but I would see the Jets and the Giants both using one of their picks. That's the only thing that I would disagree with you on, is I would see if the Giants are going to take one of those corners, they take him at 7 so that they can get Evan Neal or Ekwonu at 5. Does that make sense?
Right, 100%. I think Evan Neal, Ekwonu, and Charles Cross will go 4 or 5, or
they could almost go 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, they could, because that's the other thing is the other swing pick, if you want to talk about it, is the Panthers. If they skip on a quarterback, that means they know they are acquiring somebody, whether it's Baker, whether it's Jimmy G, whether it doesn't matter. They know they're going to get somebody. Even if the quarterbacks aren't good, who's the head coach? Matt Rule cannot be like, well, the quarterback class of 2023 is outstanding. There's like 3 or 4 of them that are going to be in the top 10.
He's not going to last another year.
You're not going to last that long. So you got to swing on one of these guys. So if that's another, and I love using this term, swing pick in this draft, if the Panthers do anything but quarterback, they know that they have a trade with Cleveland. And I would bet Baker Mayfield will go for a 5th or 6th round pick.
Well, yeah, not only the money invested, but the fact that he's made himself fairly radioactive over the last month and a half or so. But that would bring us down the line here as we hit, and that would still leave guys like Kayvon Thibodeau still available, Jermaine Johnson, and
Jermaine Johnson. Nordo was another name that I've heard a lot of steam on today. That might be the 3rd defensive end taken. That people love him. Is it Swagoo or whatever they call him on NFL Live? I think he played for Marcus Spears. He said today on NFL Live at 3:00 or whatever, he would take Jermaine Johnson #1 overall. He loves Jermaine Johnson. He said he's got the best hands for a defensive lineman. So I think his steam will go way up. It's just, but as I said when we started this, nobody knows what's going on. I for sure, even though my giant head blocks out a 75-inch TV behind me, I don't even know what's going on.
It's funny you mentioned that. I saw this comment. It's just brilliant. Look at this tiny thing. Look at this tiny LCD in the background.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers to you, Jake. It's all I have. Yeah. Okay. It's my only television. Thanks to Granite Logistics for bringing this KFAN draft preview 2022 style, whether it's YouTube, it's Facebook, Twitter, wherever you happen to be hanging out with us. We appreciate it and love you for it. Granite Logistics, where your new career awaits.
Wonderful company. I've worked with them for a while. They're great. Nordo, since you've asked, let me ask you a couple of questions. Off the top of your head, give me, not that it'll happen, but give me the spots before the Vikings that if you had to make an argument that they would take a quarterback.
Well, I think, and it's the long shot, but we've talked about Detroit. I think Carolina has to take a quarterback. Atlanta could take a QB, although they're going to take, I think, a skill position that we can talk about.
Atlanta's in the opposite of Carolina. Atlanta's in it for the long haul. Marcus Mariota is there to get them to 2, 3, and 14 next year and
make them look alive.
Yeah.
Yes. No, and mostly I agree with you. But at 9, Seattle's a spot. And so I don't know if they want to. 11 is a potential spot, even though they got Carson Wentz. You think they draft a QB after making a deal with Carson?
Yeah, but as you and I've talked about multiple times, he hasn't worked in like 4 years. I mean, they had to beat the worst team in the league last year to get to the playoffs, and he couldn't even do that. I think
they didn't even just lose to the Jags.
They almost cost them the number. They almost cost Jacksonville the #1 overall pick.
Wentz has problems. Absolutely. Yeah. But they have problems defensively, which is weird because going into last year, you think about like Washington. I still call them WFT because it's way cooler than the Commanders.
The Commanders is a terrible football name.
They were supposed to have maybe the best front 7 in the NFL.
And they're all banged up, aren't they?
All banged up. Chase Young was hurt. Who they have? They have Ioannidis. They got Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne fighting with each other. Yeah, just ridiculous.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, they were. We were taught that's like the maroon purple people eaters, but it didn't work out. So I would put so at 11, but yeah. So technically, I would say 3 or 4 teams could pick a QB prior to the Vikings selecting at 12.
Let me give you this situation, Nordo, and it's the one thing that bothers me with this whole bit, because this is literally my only. I got more passions than this, but this is my favorite time of the year, as you know, because it's all you and I basically talk about. The biggest problem facing the Vikings tomorrow is the team in front of them has the exact same needs. The exact same needs. They have a quarterback that they're not 100% sure on, even though we pay Kirk. I get that. They are in desperate need of wide receiver. They're in desperate need of the only need they don't have is defensive line, but they could use some offensive linemen. Brandon Scherf left and went to Jacksonville.
They're not going to take one at 11.
I know they're not, but I'm just making my point. They need corners, and the guy that I love, Kyle Hamilton, they desperately need a safety because they lost, Landon Collins left. So that's the thing with the Minnesota Vikings, is the team in front of them has every need. And my other point before you go on with what you have, I know there's a lot of people, and our boss is one of them, who I do like. I disagree with him. His whole take is we got to trade back. And there are a lot of people. Ben Lieber tweeted it today. We got to trade back. There are a lot of people that know a lot about this draft, more than any of us, other than maybe Ben Lieber. There are maybe, as they have said, not including the quarterbacks, there are maybe 16 first-round grades in this draft. You have the 12th overall pick. Why would you get yourself out of that? If this draft there are positions this draft is loaded, but in this draft is loaded, not loaded in the positions the Vikings need. There's like 6 dynamite cornerbacks. If you go back too far, you might miss out on them. 3 corners could go in the top, could go before the Vikings pick. The wide receivers are great, but once you get past like 5, 6, 7 of them, you just, it's like anything else. It's a lottery ticket. I just, unless you can get a first round pick to move back, I don't do it. I sit at 12 and I wait and just see who falls. It's going to be someone they didn't expect, or it's going to be somebody that they were like, hey, this is our guy the whole time. This is who we take. I know this team has a bunch of needs, but they can't solve it all in this draft and I know it's a new regime, but when was the last time this team found 4 or 5 starters in one draft? When was the last time any team did? I mean, the trade back crowd is fine, but you don't trade back if a guy you want is there. Don't move back just to make up for Rick Spielman's awful drafting habits in the past.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. Now, I have also heard, you mentioned how many people have first round grades, that regardless of that, it's more of a plateau than it is a cliff. And so the fall off from picking a guy at 12, unless somebody falls, and getting back to the quarterback conversation for a moment, pushing talent back when somebody selects a quarterback in front of us, that's great for everybody. And that would actually lend you to the idea that you got to stick and pick at 12, because the trade equity, as quarterbacks go before you, the trade equity to go back, it's not as expensive as you think, because the Pittsburgh Steelers of the world, if they weren't able to move up and get their guy and their guy's gone, well, there goes next year's first round pick. Those sorts of conversations they got to have.
And Pittsburgh, with the quarterback play they have and a couple of steps back they're going to take, they could have a top 10 pick next year anyway. Why would they give that up to take a flyer on a quarterback class that a lot of people think is BS?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Steelers haven't had a losing record in about like 17 or 18 years. So I don't think they're in the business of trying to tank or assume that they're only going to win 6 games.
Trubisky's their quarterback.
Yeah, and that's as long as Trubisky plays the Vikings 17 times next year, he'll be all pro. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. No, I just think that, and this goes back, if we're able to trade back, let's not forget the idea of getting as many bodies within the first 2 days as we possibly can. And the frustrating aspect of last year with the greatest 4 third-round draft picks in the history of the NFL draft is that we were never able to move up. And we are in that long-standing rut of just fatalism and thinking that, okay, we're going to trade back. We're going to get 15 7th-rounders. This is going to be really exciting. We're going to create a lot of competition, and it never works out. But if we're able to get 3 or 4 guys within the first 2 days, I think that's a win. So I'm not about completely, writing off the idea of trading back. I'm just thinking about a situation in a scenario where there can be something positive to come from it, depending upon what the return equity is. Now, a few things more, and before we get to our top 5 at 12, oh my God, pins and needles. Thank you, Granite Logistics. First team to take a wide receiver, I feel like it's the Falcons, right? I mean, is that just
Jets at 4?
Is that easy?
I said it on Saturday. I have the 8th overall pick tomorrow in the Power Trip mock draft, and I won't tell you which one because I don't want to ruin the surprise. I think the Falcons. I think they go quarterback at 8. I just think it's too tempting. I just think that they need a new guy, and the Malik Willis story of him being from Atlanta or even Kenny Pickett, whichever one's there. I think I think the first wide receiver could go at the 4th overall pick to the Jets. I don't think the Jets want to wait till 10.
Well, hold on a second. Like 2 minutes ago, you're telling me that the Falcons are in a spot where they can just roll with Marcus Mariota. Now you're telling me they're taking a quarterback?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I crossed myself
Which
up.
What is it, Mel Lambert? Come on.
No, but I'm just saying, though, like, I just think that they might. I agree with you.
I understand.
But that's another thing, though. But if they take Malik Willis, it's not like Malik Willis is going to get them to 16-1. They're still going to have a high draft pick. So I start over and it makes sense, and I can speak the words better. They can take anyone because they're going to be picking high again. And if they're going to go wide out, I think they go Jamison Williams because they can long play that pick.
Yeah, and I would agree with that too, because they know next year is going to be a problem. And so kind of the idea, just knee jerk is like fill the spot vacated by Calvin Ridley next season, right? So you want to get somebody that's in there and healthy and you can work with them and try and win games with them. But this guy might be, and it was 1 year, so you got to worry about the one-hit wonder terrorism as he waited behind the other most recent awesome Alabama receivers. But he kicked ass last year, and he runs 9 routes like nobody's business, and he's a speedster, and he kicks ass. So you think
great,
would you put him as the first wide receiver off the board, or just a guy that's available at 8 because it sounds like you're insinuating that the Jets as high as 4 could grab somebody else?
Yeah, I think the Jets go wide receiver at 4 because they don't want to wait to 10 to get one.
Okay.
And I think at 10 they could get Charles Cross, the left tackle. I think it's Mississippi State, to be their left tackle for 10 years. So I think they'd rather be picked over from they would rather be picked the 3rd offensive lineman than the 3rd wide receiver, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense.
Because
I think the exact opposite.
Go ahead. What?
I just happen to think the exact opposite. I know what you're saying, but I just think there are fewer starting tackles in this draft than there are wide receivers. So if they were going to wait, I think they'd prefer to wait on a pass catcher versus an O-lineman at 4. But maybe, we'll find out, because tomorrow during the Power Trip mock draft, that's where the answer key lies.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's 12 hours from right now. It starts 12 hours from right now.
Yep. So listen to the Power Trip tomorrow. You'll actually, unless you don't want spoilers for the first 12 picks of the draft, because it truly is the answer key every single year. Couple of things here. Talking about trade backs, depending upon where it goes, like I'm in on guys like Karlaftis. That's where you start talking about McDuffie, or maybe that Dax Hill, that safety / corner hybrid bit from Michigan. And I'm like, apparently I'm the only one. I adore Devin Lloyd. And I know we got Kendricks, and I know we got Za'Darius and Daniil and all of this, and Jordan Hicks. God bless him. I love Devin Lloyd. And this is a team that needs talented players. I don't know if 12's the right spot. It's probably too high to pick him. But if we trade it back and he's somewhere in that mix, 6, 7, 8, 9 picks down the road, that kid can ball, and he's awesome. And you watch him in interviews. I can't help it. I'm a Devin Lloyd fanboy.
He's got a great story.
He does.
Before we get to our top 5 at 12, maybe this will give it away. What position would you like 24 hours from right now the Minnesota Vikings to take? If it were up to you, what position would you, what position do you think they will take at 12?
I think so. If it was up to me, it'd be a corner, and it would be a certain corner, which we're going to talk about in the top 5 at 12. That might be a little too dreamy. And so more realistic, I believe it should be a wide receiver, because we're going to add a weapon and we're going to score 35 points a game. And we might give up 30, but do the math, people. It's a plus scenario, and win a bunch of games on the arm of Kirk Cousins. Football. Woo! I mean, just watch the Rams. Just watch any good offense. Great offense. And ours was good. Ours was a borderline top 10, terrible on third downs, but all the same, just some of these offenses where it's get it in their hands and watch them fly. The ability to scheme space for these wide receivers. I'm really excited. And I don't know if I'm putting too much on KOC's plate to blow our minds away, but we're going to be seeing so many different things on the field on Sundays. Defensively, transitioning to the 3-4. That's going to look a little bit different, even with some of the familiar faces on the back defensively. But then offensively, things are going to be looking different as we spread out more than we ever have, and we move away from some of the things that we did so often. So for me, corner is my favorite player in the draft. Wide receiver is the most realistic in what I think they will do. What about you?
I would love, in a dream scenario for me, what I would do, not what I think they will do. I would wait at 12, and if Kyle Hamilton is available at 12, I would take Kyle Hamilton. He's like the definition of the guy that, like, well, he didn't test well, but you put the tape on, and every high school, every coach always says the tape doesn't lie. He was so good on tape. I just think he would be an incredible piece to put to this defense. And Kyle Hamilton, if we're up to me, he would be the guy that I would take at 12 if he's available. But like you, what I think they will do, I think they will find their way to Jamison Williams, Garrett Wilson, or Drake London. I think they will take one of those top 3 wide receivers.
That's absolutely sweet. Well, let's end it on this edition. We'll have one more the day or two after the draft. And stay tuned for that, courtesy of Granite Logistics, where your new career awaits. Thank you, Granite Logistics. Let's end it with this, and we'll start with yours, or we'll start with mine, actually. Let's start with my top 5 at 12, and we can just kind of chat through this. So ours are probably going to be very similar. We love a lot of the same players, and frankly, where we sit, and over the last 4 months, we've kind of started coming to the same conclusions. Derek Stingley is, and will continue to be my favorite corner in this draft, and the best opportunity for the Vikings at 12 to instantly upgrade their secondary. That would be, again, as we were talking about with what they will do or what we want them to do. This is best case scenario for me. Yeah. But as we've just discussed, I don't know how that happens. So I moved to number 2. I love Chris Olave, and I don't know if I'm in the minority on this as well. I know Garrett Wilson had more production. I know that Garrett Wilson is steamier and generally regarded as the better of the two. I just think Olave is one of the smoothest guys on the field, and he looks so good and so perfect for what we want to do in attacking the middle of the field against our opponents and getting a guy like Olave in space and letting that kid fly. And we love JJ, love Justin Jefferson, but I like this kid in terms of getting a ball in his hands and just making plays on his own even more than I love JJ to do it. And he's pretty good at it. Yeah. And then Kyle Hamilton, Jermaine Johnson, I love him. And you know why I love him, to be honest, is because Ben Lieber turned me on to him, and just watching a bunch and reading a bunch. This kid has had to grow up fast, and he's had to learn a lot.
He's incredible. He's a one-hit wonder, though.
He's a one-hit wonder at Florida State after, again, taking a very unique route to get there in the first place.
He at Georgia?
Well, yeah, he was at Georgia, didn't play much, and then now Florida State, 17 TFLs or something like that this year.
That's incredible.
He's an absolute playmaker and an athletic freak. So if he's available, I'll take him. And then Garrett Wilson, those two Ohio State kids, you can interchange them from my standpoint. I don't think you can miss with either one of them.
Yeah,
who do you got? Who's your top 5 at 12?
Kyle Hamilton's my number one guy. I think Kyle Hamilton would be great. I love it. It's the as the kids call it, the drip situation for me. A sweet safety is a sweet position. I would love Kyle Hamilton if his name's called at 12. I just fear, like I said earlier, the Commanders have the exact same needs as we do. I think he would go to the Commanders at 11 right before us. Thank God we won that meaningless game against Chicago at the end of the year. Garrett Wilson would be incredible at 12 if he's available. He'd have to skip a couple of teams to get there. Hey, maybe we hope that a Deebo Samuel trade happens tomorrow to the Jets, and then that takes him completely out of the running for a wide receiver, but it might put the 49ers right in the path of a wide receiver. That being said, Derek Stingley at 3. The only reason I'm at 3 is because I don't think he'll be there. I really think he will be the 3rd overall pick. Jamison Williams, I absolutely love. A lot of the people who do this for a living and do it and talk about it way better than you and I do think he'd be the number 1 guy if he hadn't gotten hurt in the championship game. He might even be the 4th overall pick, maybe even the 3rd overall pick to Houston if he wasn't hurt. And I know he just plays 2 downs, and Lieber isn't too high. I'm taking him at 12. But Jordan Davis, and I got the Hall of Fame thumbs up on Jordan Davis from my guy Johnny Randall. He loves Jordan Davis. And if he loves Jordan Davis, then I love Jordan Davis. That's my top 5. I'm glad you
included Jordan Davis. So when I first looked at him, I honestly I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, and there he is on the screen. Fat guy in the middle, he's a run stuffer, all of this. No, he murders people. I mean, he is a freaking monster.
I would be happy if they picked it. He'd be somebody you could maybe go to 16 to get, but you'd have to stay in front of the Chargers.
Yep. So I did not include him in my top 5. But I will tell you, if they took Jordan Davis, I would not be mad about it. One of the biggest difference makers on one of the best defenses that we've seen in the last so many years in college football, that's Jordan Davis. He helps Trayvon Walker do his business. Quay Walker, a linebacker, is on the verge of being drafted in the 1st round. He can't do what he does without Jordan Davis. And they got this another cat next to him. I don't think he would fit as well because we already got a couple of these, but is it Javonte Wyatt?
Yeah.
Or something like that. I think that's his name. But again, all these Georgia Bulldogs just chalk him up in the 1st round, it feels like. But I love Jordan Davis. I'm glad you included him. Any parting thoughts, or are we we're just pumped for the draft?
I'm pumped. I can't wait. 7:30 tomorrow, we start with the mock draft. PA has the 1st pick, then into Lieber. You have a couple of picks. I have a couple of picks. Charch will be there to talk us all off the ledge and give his expert opinion. PA will try and nail who we're going to take at 12. We'll go up to 9, and then I assume you guys will go mostly.
I hope he doesn't do that.
Yeah, well, he'll try and tell us who will be the pick at 12.
Oh, okay.
And then I would assume you guys go wall-to-wall draft.
Yeah, we do. Tomorrow, we're going to kick off the show, actually. Charch is going to stick around with us. We got Ben Lieber in studio, which is normal, and it's perfect because it's draft day. Vikings Entertainment Network's Tatum Everett is calling. She's in Vegas.
Yeah, she's joining us for the after party right after the show.
Oh, sweet. And she's with us at 11. We're going to have Arif Hassan from The Athletic. He's going to break things down into chewable numbers that people like PA and myself can understand. Russo on the Wild, but then PJ Fleck, because the Gophers have a couple of guys, Boye Mafe, Daniel Faalele, a couple others that they might get dreams fulfilled. Their new career might be awaiting them this weekend. So we're going to talk to PJ about that. And then we have that spring game on Saturday, of course. So that's how we're going to do it. And then we got draft coverage tomorrow night live starting at 6:30 at US Bank Stadium. Draft party. You're going to be on your couch. I'm going to be keeping the smoke machine away from my guy on stage, and we're going to party it up all the way to pick 12 and beyond it. And then Friday, what do we do? I mean, we got the Wolves game on. It's game 6.
I think you and I are going to do this on Friday right at 6:30. 6:30 to 7.
I think that's perfect.
I would assume that the Wolves game, because it'll probably be the only game on Friday. Because
might be a 7 or 8 o'clock game.
It might be later than that. It might be 9, so they can get the West Coast TV viewers.
Another 9 p.m. Midwestern tip.
Yep. Hey, it'll be fine, because then we can do this, watch the second and third round, and roll into that. Quickly, final thought from you. I just need it from you. If you had to put a name to the 12th pick right now, who would you say?
I'm going to put Garrett Wilson's name on it, or Chris Olave via my top 10, because I think Garrett's gone.
Yeah.
So our wide receiver conversation, I think Garrett's gone in the top 10. And I love Chris Olave. If they take Chris Olave or Jermaine Johnson, who I think are two guys that'll be available at 12, or Jordan Davis. Now I'm kind of in love just talking about Jordan Davis. And
either one, it'll be sweet. We'll have a new Viking tomorrow. It'll be great. I can't wait. It's the best time of year.
I put 3 names on him because I'm a coward, Sauce.
That's all right.
Because I have no spine. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody for tuning in, whether it's, again, via Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, wherever you found us. And, of course, follow at KFAN's 1003 on all of our social pages for updates, weird videos, pictures of Saucy. Everyone's fascinated by that. And draft takes for a full day of draft coverage starting at what time tomorrow?
7:30 a.m. is when the mock draft starts.
7:30 for the Power Trip mock draft. And again, thank you so much to Granite Logistics, where your new career awaits. Granite Logistics bringing you this KFAN draft preview show this evening. Also bringing you a bit of a review show on Friday evening featuring Saucy and yours truly. Thanks to Zach Halverson for putting those cool graphics together. Thanks to AJ for at least checking in and giving us some login intel. And good luck to the Vikings. And let's party it up tomorrow. It's going to be an absolute blast, Saucy.
Can't wait. Love you. Bye.
Bye. Good night, everybody.